Jessica, hey, congratulations on this film, Lucky Day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Hey, no, thank you for actually talking about this film. This is a terrific film. You know what? I didn't even know what to expect when I first watched it. So, so Dan, let me start with you. Where the original idea came from? I mean, did you win the lottery and decide to write a story? How did this came about?
I mean, the original idea, it's one of those ideas where I think it comes from like a bunch of different places. I think one of the things is I had seen a Far Side comic where there was a dead person and they found a winning lottery ticket on a dead person. I was like, oh, that's a fun idea. And then I think I took that and just sort of combined it with I think I was shopping one night at a convenience store and just sort of like took in the moment and I was like, oh, maybe something like this, and then wrote a script. So I think that was the basic for the idea, and then just sort of my own personal love for the like the Treasures of the Sierra Madre kind of stories, or the Chaucer's, the Canterbury Tales, like that. Like, oh, there's a group of people, there's a pile of money, and can you trust anybody? I think those are like really fun, interesting stories. Are some of my favorite kind of movies. So I think just gotta start it there and follow the rest.
Most excellent. Jessica, what initially drew you to a Lucky Day for yourself?
It's so unique. The film Dan, but the character especially is unlike any character I had read for, that I had read a script with. I mean, you to be a a Latina on number one on the call sheet, lead role, it doesn't happen. And in fact, there are studies coming out of USC every year. They're like, it's not getting better. It's not getting better every year. That is the headline. And and so I remember, I think Dan, like the last day of the shoot, I was like, you don't know how much this means to me to lead the movie, to be number one, to be that thing that just feels impossible. And so all of that is very exciting, but also just the role is incredible. I mean, very as not often as we see Latinas and leads, we also don't see pregnant women who are so who are more beyond than just being pregnant, who are so capable and who have such a will to survive and to fight and to be strong and to be witty and to be vulnerable and to be physical, beyond outside of her pregnancy, is all very unique and unlike anything else. And so, and all of these things are parts of what drew me in and what made me so excited to give it my all and to give it a go.
And don't forget to mention that your character is incredibly smart. There is no way a regular person could devise and make those quick decisions like that.
So the pregnancy brain is
she's an irregular person.
She's some kind of superhuman. I do have to admit that in that situation. Dan, tell us about the difficulties of with the night shoots and doing all this in one location for yourself.
Yeah, difficulties. We're done to begin. I mean, in some ways, one location is sort of a blessing, in the sense that at least you know where you're going to be every day. But I think some of that stuff, thankfully, I think helps the movie in the sense that, like, it was stressful, it was night, you're kind of just going through it, you're living the experience in some way. And so I think in some ways that helps sort of, it's easy for everyone to sort of put that on the screen. I think when it's not, you're staying up late, you're doing the thing, you're kind of going through it. It's not, it's not a cushy experience. So I think I'm not anti-cushy experiences. I just think, like, in this case, I think it's helpful to sort of have a little bit of that reality in there. And one of the goals, to sort of help things, we try to, as much as possible, do things in order or based off of like how we were going to be ruining everyone's clothes, to sort of save ourselves on wardrobe changes, which I think then helps like backload a lot of like the more intense things to the end.
You just unlocked so many memories of the dress and it's just so many deep-rooted memories. Yes. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no, that's perfectly fine. But I think that's sort of those were and I think just from a general, like, it was just a challenging shoot in terms of budget, and time, and really, like, prep time too was really like non-existent on this movie. I prepped it and raised more money in about a month and cast it, and so like it was just sort of this, just sort of getting chased. You're just sort of running towards the thing, and once it started, it already was like the train was moving. So there was just sort of a very intense shoot, and I think for everybody. So, and then you just sort of hope that all turns out. And thankfully, I have one of the most important people on the film is named Nick Fazzillo, who's my editor and also like my best friend. And we were just able to sort of, I lived in his house. He would cut at night, or he would do a regular day job and then come help out. He was just sort of this incredibly important person that helped me kind of get this thing done. And if anything happened, he would sort of be there to sort of help out. He came and took set photos on the last day because I was like, we should take some behind the scenes pictures. We didn't have money for the kinds of things you should have to help promote your movie. Like, oh, someone should have some pictures. And then, even, we had a particularly rough day, I think, in terms of just time, and like, it was stressful. And I remember feeling like we need to get people excited about what we're making because this is a low budget movie and it's rough in here and you don't know how it's coming together. So I had him cut this little mini trailer of scenes, and I felt like you could feel the difference on set that day because people got suddenly excited, like, oh, it's not going to be terrible. I mean, maybe they didn't think it was going to be anyways, but I think like, you're in that zone and it's tough, and things don't go exactly as planned, or, you have to respond to like changes. So like having someone like that along the way was incredibly important for me and for the movie, I think.
Absolutely. And Jessica, they really put you through the grinder in this film, or Daniel did put you through the grinder in this film.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I don't have a good response to that.
How enjoyable was that experience for you, Jessica? Or was it not?
No, it was so much fun. In the moment, it's one of those things where it's you're kind of miserable, but it's one of those things where it's like you are, it's the pain for the like the pleasure later. It's there are certain scenes where like I'm on my knees, like just crawling around on the ground. And I remember just like I couldn't feel my kneecaps for days, and then like I remember there's a lot of swinging motions that happens, and it's funny because when you're in the moment and you're doing these scenes, you don't realize the toll it's taking on your body until you go home later, and then your whole body is just in pain and you can't move. And that's what, because you're so, as an actor, you're lending yourself to the moment, lending yourself to the scene, and if you're doing it right, hopefully you're not paying attention to your face and your body, and all of that later comes into effect when you go to bed and you're at home. So it's in the moment, it's really hard work, it's not easy, it's really intense, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of adrenaline, but the reward is having it finished and seeing it, all said and done, and being really happy with this story that's being told. So I had so much fun, the thrill of my life. I've never gotten to be super physical. I've always kind of I've been in very physical projects, but not partaking in a lot of that physicality. And this was the first time I really got to go full throttle and enjoy it. And I had the time of my life.
Most excellent. And one last main question, and all of us always have to ask this question, and you know what question I'm asking about. This is one of Angus's last projects. Could you talk about one of his final performances? And I also feel like his character. This is all his character's fault in the film.
Yeah, I mean, his character is to blame for some of these things. But I think he's like strangely like the only innocent in some ways. Like he's the only person who. Anyway, I can't give anything away, but he's kind of Anyway, as for Angus, I think one of the things that he was just such a sweet person. I think that's what comes to mind first, and he was so kind to do the movie. He was so kind to everybody on set. He was so helpful. He was just very much the kind of thing we all needed. I felt like, like he was there, and during like hard nights, he would sort of encourage everybody on. He would yell quiet on the set right after the AD would. He would just sort of be there for everybody. And he had just like his own way about him and his own tempo, and he would listen to people. I don't know. He just sort of. I remember him. There would be scenes where like he wouldn't even be on camera, and he'd be like cheering people on and like telling them they did a great job, and like having someone like that around, and someone like that who's in that position where he could really like, that means a lot to people. And I don't even think maybe he knew, or maybe he didn't know. I think it's just like his personality. It wasn't like it was unself-conscious, I think, in the sense like I don't think he was like trying to hype anybody up. He was just like just being kind and understanding that people needed encouragement and support. And he was there for everybody as much as possible, I think. So I think that's sort of what I think of him first as. And then I think he was just a great actor, and I think he had something really special that, that he could just shine on camera, and people really responded to that. And it's just this great tragedy that there's not going to be a whole lot more.
Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, Dan said a lot of it perfectly. I guess I can add that like I feel like his presence on set was so much attributed to just how much he loved it. You always want to do this with people who love doing it and who appreciate it and who don't take it for granted for a second. And speaking in my own experience, it's sometimes hard to remind yourself that, but not Angus. It was never hard to remind himself and all of us that we were lucky and privileged, and it was an honor to get to do what we loved. And he exemplified that in his attitude, in his commitment to showing up every day and making sure that not only, making sure that the work was done, but that the work was done in the most fun way possible. And that's a gift for any set.
Absolutely. We will miss him. So Daniel, Jessica, thank you very much for speaking to us about Lucky Day. If I was in that position, I probably would not make that deal, but we'll let the audiences decide. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.